It's not connect for problem.
Yeah, I just touched it, and when I try to unplug and replug, it's. It did the same previously, and then it worked correctly when I was preparing the talk. Okay. So yes, what I was saying is that we are limited in the term of fields we can store in the authentication system of Firebase. We can just have a user, but if we want to save extra fields, like the username, for instance, then we'll have to create a user in database along with the user in the authentication storage. So it will allow us to see how to create a data in database. So let's get started. It's basically it's almost the same when we are doing things with database. We will import a few functions from Firebase/database this time, and the functions will be always the same way it works. So we will import getDatabase, which is like the getAuth but to getDatabase module. Then we will import the ref, which is a reference, and I will talk about it, and the set function, and I think that's it. So the first thing we will do is that we will create a ref, which is a reference to a place in the JSON object of the database. So the user ref will be something like ref of getDatabase, because it takes the database as the first parameter. And then we will give the path where we will create this data we will set in database. So we will do it logically. So we will create a user's path with and it will be stored at the user.uid place, which means that, as I said, when we create the user in the authentication system, it creates a UID, and we will store in the user/this UID the user in database. So we have the ref. Now we just have to call the set method, giving the reference, which is the user ref, and the object we will create in database. So I will just go and copy it from the project which is already working. Okay, so the user we will create looks like this. The user, it will just have the UID, an email, and the username, which comes from the form values. So we will just create it, user in database, and this function returns a promise, so we will await so that if there is an error, we go into the catch, and yes, that's it. So let's see. Let's try this. So I will create a new profile with Quentin1, Quentin +1 at perstudio.fr, secret123, my favorite password. And yes, I have the username. So let's create the account. So we can't see anything, so we'll just go into the database database service, and we can now see that. Let me zoom in. We can now see that there is a user path with the user UID, which is the UID of the new user that has been created, with all the information we set. So we just created a data in database using this function directly from the front end, and I will talk about the rules later. Okay, so let's get the user now, because what we want to do with it is to set it in the authentication provider of the front end so that we can see that we are connected. So we'll do exactly the same. We'll import the database and ref from Firebase/database, and this time we won't have the set function but the get function to get the user. So we will call get with the user ref. And for the query, we don't really care. We can just give it. No, sorry, it's not like this. It's get database. No. What are the parameters? So it's a query. We can give a ref. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So this function returns a promise, and this promise, as you can see here, it has a data snapshot. So what is a data snapshot that I will call user snapshot? It's like an object which is wrapping the data you will get. So just remember this, when you are getting data from a real-time database of Firebase, you will always get a snapshot, which is a kind of wrapper containing a val function which allows you to get the real value of what we saw in the database. But it also has a few functions, which are, for instance, the ref, to have the reference of it, the key, the size, a function to know if it exists, because you can say I want the user which is with UID ABC, but it doesn't exist, so the exist function will allow you to know if it exists or not. So what we'll do here is that we'll get the value of the user snapshot, and I will call this user in database. And finally, what we will do is that we will set the user in the authentication provider through the update user method. So I will call update user with user in database. And now we should be able to be logged in and see the real-time chat. So I will go and try to connect with the new account. And that's it. So we were able to get the user and to set it in the authentication system. And when I click here, we can see that I can see my email, I can see my username, which is simplified in the little avatar right here, and that's it. So at this time, we were able to create a user in the authentication system. We were able to log in with him, to create a user in database, and to get it from the database. So now we will just start the real-time chat functionalities. So in the page dashboard, which is the page that contains this code, for the moment what we have is just that we have hard-coded messages, and we will have to do 4 things to be able to have the complete real-time chat that works. The first thing is that when you come on the page, we will join the room as a user. So me as a Q+1 at bearstudio.fr, I will join this room by adding some data in database. Then I will be able to create a message. Then I will have to handle the new messages coming to be able to see others users' messages. And finally, we will, if we have the time, we will have a handler to handle new users joining the room, so that we can see who is in the room and who left the room. Okay, so the first thing is to create a join room function, which is a function that doesn't take any parameter. I will just try and catch to see if there are errors. In case there are errors, I will just log them so that we can see them. And yes, one more thing. If there is no user, because maybe the user is still not loaded in the context, then we will return to not do anything. And that's it. So let's go with the Firebase functionalities. We will create a new data. So I will import from Firebase/database. So we will basically do the same. We will get the get database function, the ref, and the set function. And here we will user room users ref, which is a ref containing the get database, and that will contain, and that will be in the path /rooms/ let's say room1 so here I'm just creating a list of rooms. For the moment we will just handle the room1, and for this talk we will just have one room, but it will allow you to, in the future, have multiple rooms and manage multiple rooms. So in the users of the room 1, I will just add the user.uid, and here I will set for the room user ref the user. So I will save in the rooms/room1/user/ his UID. I will just set the user. Okay, so to have this function called when I join the page, I don't know if you know React, but what we will do is that we will create a use effect, which is like the code which will be executed each time anything is the dependency array changes, which means here the dependency array is empty, so it will be executed only once when the page loads, but I will still add the user so that if the user changes, the join room function is recalled. So yes, I think that's it. So when the page here, it's reloaded automatically with hot reload. So let's see in the database, and we can see that there is a room with room 1 and users, and my user is right here. So that's okay for joining room. We just did it. Now what we will do is that we will allow the user to send a new message. For this, we already have a component which is write message that takes a user and that will show if we are submitting the message, and that takes also a message which allows to send a message, which is an asynchronous function that returns true or false depending on if the message has been created successfully or not. So let's go with this. We will first create the state is submitting, set is submitting, which is false by default, and we will create the send message function, which will take a message, so the text message, so it's string as a parameter, and returns, as I said, a promise with a boolean inside. And this function, so what we will do is that we'll try and catch as usual. First we will say that we are submitting when this function is called. Finally, we are not submitting anymore. In case of error, we will just log the error. And finally, okay, let's go. What we'll do, so sending a message is just adding a message in a list of messages in the room. So we will do the same. We will create a messages ref, which is a ref with at the path, which is /room/room1/messages, so not the /users but the /messages, and that's it. What we will do is that we won't use the set method, but we will use the push method, because we will let Firebase create like an ID for this message for us, which will be easier. So we will call the push method for the ref, for the message ref, and we will just have to push to set the value of the message, which is right here. I will copy and paste it. Yes, the message is here. Okay, so the message that we will create, it contains content, which is the string message, the author, which is the user who sent the message, and the created that, which is a timestamp. So here's the way to get a timestamp. And we have an error with the author here, which is a TypeScript error, because maybe the user is null, we don't know yet. So if not user, then we'll just return false to say that the message hasn't been sent. Yeah, sorry, it's async, so it will be understood that promise of boolean. And I forgot, yes. So in the case of error, I will return false, and I will await for the push. And if the push succeeds correctly, I will return true to say that the message has been deleted. So returning true or false is just a way for the write message component here to know if the message has been sent to clear the message field. So isSubmitting is the isSubmitting state that we created, and the function to send message is sendMessage. So we are still doing exactly the same. We are just writing some data in database. So we'll try. We won't see anything here because it's still hard-coded message. So if I send hello Almaty message, I pressed enter. The message is not here anymore, and we can see in database that there is the messages path, and there is we pushed into this messages path. So we can see that there is all the data we created. So it's good for the send message functionality. Now what we will do is that we will do the real-time thing by handling new message incoming that are incoming in this messages path. So to have the real-time functionalities of Firebase, it won't be that much complicated. We will just use this onChildAdded function, which will take a callback, and each time a child will be added to the given path of database, then it will call this callback. So we will create a function which is handle new messages, which will be called in a use effect once more to just call it to have this this subscription when the page is loading. So handle new messages. So in this function, as I said, we will call the handleChildAdded function by giving the right reference, which is the message ref. So as I said, it takes a reference and then it takes a callback. So the callback here, I will just copy and paste it from the working project, because it doesn't make sense that we recreate it. So the callback will just be a function. So let me write it. So yeah, the callback is a function that takes a snapshot as a value. As I said, when you are getting data from Firebase, you are always getting snapshots. So here it will be a message snapshot. And we will do everything so that we have to call the handle message, which takes the message and its key, and just adds it to a state I will create right now. So I will create a state which is the messages state, so that it can refresh as soon as a new message is here with React. The setMessages function, and I will type with TypeScript. So it's a state containing an associative array, so an object with a key and the message as parameter, as a value. Okay, so here there is an error because the hard-coded messages are still there. So I will just delete the hard-coded message. And I will just have to call the handle message with the right parameter. So we have to give the message type. So I will give the message snapshot.val, which is the value inside, and the message key, which is just a unique key for this message. That will be the key that we saw in database, the equivalent of the UID, but which is the key created by Firebase. And we'll get it from the message snapshot.key. And I will just say that this is our empty string because this key can be null. It won't be null in our case, but for snapshot generally there is not always a key. So I will just repeat what we did here. We just have to use the onChildAdded function, saying that we will listen to a reference and we will define a callback. We will just have the new item each time a new item is added. So let's go and try. You can see that it already works, but here there is a small thing to know, because this message was already there. I just didn't create it. So it's not like it has not just been added. But what Firebase does with the onChildAdded callback, with the onChildAdded function, is that it will start to load, when you are defining this subscription, it will load all the data that were already in the database, and call the callback for each piece of data. So this is why we are already seeing the only message which was in database, which is great, because we don't have to say, okay, get the message in database, and then when you had the message, define a subscription so that I'm aware of the new messages, which is awesome because there could be a messages in between the two. So now let's try. I will create a new like private navigation window. I will create an account with like, let's say, slava@test.com. No, sorry, it was the email. Okay, password. I'm creating the account. Okay, so once I'm on this page, as I said, I can see the message. You will notice that the message is on left because it's not my message, and on the other, the message is on right because this is mine. So, as what I will do is that I will just do that and that. I will close this. Okay, so on the left we have Quentin's account, and on the right we have Slava's account. So if Slava answers with "Hello, Quentin," we saw that it directly appears in the chat, and the callback has been just called, and we can start to have conversations. So how are you? Oh yeah, sorry. There is just a little bug. I need to refresh when I open a new page. So because the message there is yeah. How are you? Fine. What about you? So we can see that the real-time thing is really working. So it's great. We already made a lot of things for our chat. I will just close this one and go back to this one. Okay, so I think we made already a lot of things with the database. So now you can see how to write single values, how to read values, how to handle new things. There is just, well, yes, there is just one more thing that we will do, but I will just copy and paste the code of this, because it's not interesting to do it, since we already did it for the messages. Is that we will do it for the users once a user joins the room. So I will comment this. I will remove this so that you can see something we need to think about. So I will just create a state with the users, which will be the users joining the room. Set users, which is by default an empty array, and it's it's a state of user type array. Okay, so here what I copy and pasted is a use effect containing the handle new users, and in the handle new users it's exactly the same as the handle new messages. I will just remove this to show you. So it defines a reference to the room1/users, and on onChildAdded of the user we will edit the user state to add a new one. So Yes, I just forgot to use the users variable. So we have a chat users component which takes users as the parameters. So here we can see that we have not only Quentin and Slava, but one more time Quentin and Slava, which is a bug, and this is exactly what I wanted to show you. So let's say that in the front end, I'm refreshing one more time by just hot reloading the page. So I put a log with nothing inside. We can see that we still have this one because we defined the subscription not once but 3 times, because each time we reload we are creating this subscription with the use effect. But subscription with Firebase is like subscription with web, for instance, add event listener. We always have to be careful to unsubscribe to this kind of thing. So we will do this, and it will be pretty easily. It's just that on child added, it returns an unsubscribe function. So I will return this function in the use effect, so that I can get the const unsubscribe function right here. And when we leave the page, we will just call the unsubscribe function. So if you don't know React, just know that what you return from a use effect is a piece of code that will be executed when the component will disappear from the page. So here it's just a piece of code that I will run when the page is removed to be hot reloaded. So I will start by setting the users to an empty array. I'm subscribing and then I'm unsubscribing. And here we are. We just have the few users, and if I hot reload the page, we still have only 2 users. So we successfully unsubscribed, and we have to don't forget to do it to prevent memory leaks. Okay. So we didn't do it for the handle message, but it's exactly the same. We have to unsubscribe to this handler too. Okay, I won't do it right now because you know how it works and it's not interesting, but we have to unsubscribe too. Okay, so we saw the authentication, we saw the database with real-time and not real-time things. Now, what we will do is just that we will handle this avatar thing, which is on the register page, to show you how to create, how to send a file into the storage of Firebase. So back on the page register, we just have to handle the image upload right here. So I have already prepared the stubs, which are the functions, but empty for most of them. I will import this and import this. Okay. So we will just call this handle image upload once. No, it's not, I think. I will just call the handle image upload, which only takes the user UID as a parameter. So here it's just, yes, it's asynchronous, so I will wait for this. So yes, for the moment it doesn't do anything, and we will go and import the functions that are necessary. And as you will see, it's exactly the same as with database. It has the same ref function. Here I can't just call it ref because there will be a collision with the database ref, so I will say ref as storage ref. We will also have the get storage function, and finally, which one we will use? It's the upload bytes resumable function, which will allow us to upload a file and to stop and resume if we want. So let's create the avatar ref first, which is a ref taking sorry, not a ref, but a storage ref, since I called it like this, which will take the get storage function. So you see it's exactly the same APIs that with database. And it will take a path, which will be, for our example, let's say /users. So /users, it's a folder which will be created as we want. If we wanted, we could say /users/a/b/c. It would create all the architecture for us. So here we will just do /users/ the user UID thing /avatar.jpg, for instance. We could have the detection of type, but I don't care here. So I will just upload an avatar which is named avatar.jpg. So to do it, we will call the upload bytes resumable function, which will take the avatar reference as a first parameter, and the second one will be the file as a blob it's a blob or uint8 array or array buffer. So for me, it's I already prepared this thing. It's a React reference. We don't really care about it because it's not Firebase code. It's just React. But the Firebase the file ref.current is something which is updated when the file input is changing. So unchanged, we are setting the file ref.current to event.target.files.0. Okay, so it contains the file. So yes, here I will just ignore a TypeScript error because I didn't find a workaround for this. So there is the file, and okay, so here it will upload a file, but we won't know when it's ended. We won't know how much progress of it we have. So what we will do is that we will get the upload task out of it, and the upload task is something you can define a subscription on, and there is an event which is called the I don't remember. Yeah, the state changed. The state change event, which means that I will give 3 functions to this handler, which will be called when the file transfer is progressing, when the file upload failed, and when the file upload succeed. So I will just do it right here. So for the first one, I will just call handle transfer. That will take the upload task snapshot. The other one is the handle upload failed, and the last one is a function which will take a snapshot, I think. Or we don't care what it takes because we don't need it. We just have to call the handle upload succeed with 2 parameters, and we'll do it after. Okay, so for the first one, handle transfer, as I said, it's called each time the transfer is progressing. So what we will do here is that we will show to the user how much progress we did in the upload. For that, we have an interesting fields in the snapshot. So I will call the set file upload progress, which is just a state. It's we have a React state, which file upload progress, and set file upload progress, which will show a percentage of how far the upload went. So we will call this with snapshot.bytes transferred, which is the amount of bytes which already has been transferred, on snapshot.total bytes, which is the complete file size, on multiplied by 100 to have a percentage of it. Okay. And maybe I can do something like a math.run, but I think I already did it in the component which will show it. Okay, so for the transfer, that's it. It will be able to show the transfer. When the upload failed, I already prepared an error thing, which will just say, okay, the file couldn't be uploaded. And finally, in the handle upload succeed, we will just have to I will copy and paste it because I don't want to write it. It's in the page register and it's in this function. Okay. What it will do is that when the upload is ended, what you will want to do is to get a URL of the avatar to store in the user in database, so that you can, when you get the user in database, for instance, in the top right avatar image on the website, so that we can directly have this avatar URL. So what we will do is that from the upload task and the user UID, we will start download the URL, which is used by get download URL, which is a function that has been imported from Firebase storage, and that will take it will take a reference, and it will return a promise containing the download URL of the file. Then we will just show a success message saying that the file has been uploaded successfully. And finally, and it would be, I don't need it, it's already after. So then what I will do is just, I will create a database reference at the user / my user UID / avatar URL, and I will set the download URL at this path so that we can have the URL stored inside. And finally, I will call the set is success function. That, by the way, I don't have to call it here because we want to show the success message saying, okay, the account has been created successfully only when the image is uploaded. And the last thing I forgot to do is that this function, as I said, it takes a task and the user UID. So it takes the upload task and the user UID. Okay, so it's all the code we need to have an image uploaded, getting the URL, and having something which is awesome, which is the transfer progress. So we will just try this, but as I said, today Firebase has an issue and we couldn't create the storage. So I will show you this piece of code working with the online version of the chat. Okay, so I will log out and create a new account. So I will create, I don't remember how much account I created, so I will create Q+21, bearstudio.fr, so it's still not the email, Quentin21, secret123, and I will get a file which is heavy. So this one, it's 2.7 megabytes. I want an heavy file so that you can have the time to see the upload. So it will be fast if the connection is great. So when I will click create account, we will first create the account in the authentication system, then create it in database, and then upload the file. And you will see just below, right here, you will see that the upload is in progress. So let's go. Okay, and the file has been uploaded successfully. So we can see it, and if you have a component for that, I don't know if we have it in Start UI, but you can have just a progress bar which is showing the progress, which is great in terms of user experience. Okay, so if I go to login and try to log with the new account, we will see if the avatar URL has been updated successfully. So yes, my image is right here, and I can see, maybe I think it's this project, so in the real-time database. I have a lot of accounts, so I don't know which one this is, but as you can see here, it's with another account, but the avatar URL looks like this. It's a URL going to Firebase. Okay, so we saw authentication, database, storage. I will just show you with functions and tell you a few things about functions. So as I said, Firebase functions, it's just some pieces of code that are in the cloud. So it's just one function, like JavaScript or Node.js function, which is in the cloud, and that you will be able to trigger from 3 different ways. So the first thing is HTTP functions, which are functions that you will be able to call over HTTP, which means that, for instance, let's say that you want to do some complex checks before you upload, before you send the message in the chat. Then what you will be able to do is create a function that you will be able to upload to Firebase functions, and it will create the data in database for you. So it's a function that you will be able to call from your front end because it's callable over HTTP. Okay. So it's the first type of function. Then there are another type of function, which is database trigger, which is really interesting because it's a function that will be called once some data changes in database. And I created one here that you will be able to go check on GitHub, but I will also explain how it works. So it's right here. So the first thing you need to know is that the functions folder right here, it has been set it up just using the documentation. If you type Firebase functions, you will see the get started right here, and it will give you the instruction to initialize your project. So you will have to log in from the CLI of Firebase, the command line interface, then init the functions, and it will just ask you a few questions and create the function directory with the index.js, the node modules, the package.json, and so on. So it's just two commands to run in your terminal, and you'll have the index.js file right here. So I just edited this file so that it has this function. So the database trigger function, it works like this. So we call function from Firebase functions .database .ref, which is a reference to a place in database, which is right here the room/room1/messages/message ID, which is between braces, which means that you will be able to get this parameter. So for any message in the room/room1 messages path, then when it will be created, so on create, you will be able to call this callback, which is right here, okay? Which means that all this code will be called each time a new message is sent, which is really interesting because in our case, it will allow us to do the moderation thing I did. So when I said hello cunt, then we saw that the message was deleted. So the functions, the callbacks, they take the snapshot of what has been just created and a context. So from the context, I will be able to get the message ID, which is right here. So which means that if I change to message ID, I will get it like this, okay? So what I'm doing here is that I'm getting a message ID variable. I'm getting the new message using the snapshot.val, and the snapshot is the first parameter of the callback. I'm getting the content as lowercase in the message content. I'm just checking two insults, which are cunt and asshole, and if those insults are found in the message content, then what I will do. So if they are not found, I will return, just stop here, and it's okay, the message won't be modified. And if an insult is found, then what I will do is that I will create a reference with the get database function. So it's not the same API, and to my point of view, it's a developer experience issue from Firebase, because here we are getting Firebase not from Firebase/database because it's a front-end dependency, but we are getting it from the back-end dependency, the Firebase admin/database path. Okay, so keep in mind that here we are doing back-end code, back-end functions, which means that we are executing this in a Node.js environment and not in a JavaScript environment. Okay. So we will just finish in two minutes for this talk. I will just show you the end of the file. So we will just, for this ref, so is deleted by admin, we will set it to true to say that it has been deleted. Okay, it's not a real deletion. It's just like a logical deletion. And so it was the second kind of functions. So it can be triggered from database, and you have exactly the same for storage, which will allow you, for instance, to when a file has been uploaded, to make thumbnails out of it, so files that will be not that heavy. So you can have the same functions. And the third function type are scheduled functions, which means that here I created a function which will be executed every 60 minutes that will go and delete all the past messages, because I don't want to store history in my chat, or I want to move it to another place in the database, so that we don't load a heavy message list when we are doing the on-child added thing in the front end. So every 60 minutes I will go and change something in database. So you just have to do functions.pubsub.schedule, say when you want to run it, and on run it will execute this kind of thing. So you can do things when you want, and I know that in projects we always have to do this kind of thing. We always have users to delete, maybe data to change, or things to trigger each time a day or each time a year. Okay, so that's it for the functions part. So you can see that we can do a lot of things with them. Just one final word, because I said I would talk about it. So we have an issue here because we created the database as completely opened, which means that anyone can, from the front end, create data where he wants in the database, which is not secured at all. So this is why real-time database has something which is called rules. And by default, the rules, you can set it opened, which means that you can read and you can write as much as you want. There is no restrictions. In the project, you will find in the README the rules that are necessary for this project. I will copy and paste them. So you have an editor online which will allow you to set the rules. So let's just go through them in 1 minute. So we can say that for the users pass in database, so the /users, for a specific UID that I will be able to get later, then you can read. You can read, it's true, so you can read. Anyone can read any user's data, but you can write only if the UID you are trying to write is the authenticated user's UID. And you can't delete your data, so you are checking that the new data, which is something provided by Firebase, exists. And then you will be able to make some checks, for instance, and so the new data exists, it's okay. And I want, for instance, that data, the previous data .child.uid.value is equal to the new data UID, because I don't want a user to be able to change his UID. Okay, so I will allow him to write some things, but not everything. So to be able to write, he has to respect some rules. And we have the same kind of things for the rooms, so we can define where we want to write, where we can read, and so on. And sometimes you have to define the database schema depending on the rules, which means that you can do subparts in the JSON just to say that something can be read, because, for instance, here I can read everything in the user, which is a problem because I don't want users to be able to read each user's email. So you can define some parts to say that some parts are public and some other are not. And you have the same kind of rules for storage. Okay, so I will just go back to the presentation, and I will publish them on my Twitter. So you will find in them some reminders on how to register a user, how to log in, how to save in database, to retrieve from database, to upload a file to storage, listen to new data, create a database listener on server side, schedule functions, and there are some some cons to Firebase, because I presented this as if it was the wonderful technology, but there are a few drawbacks, like local developments are not that easy because you work with a distant project. There is an emulator, but the emulator in local is not perfect. It's not that easy to use. It's a pay as you grow, which means that when you have small users, which is the case for one of my projects, I've got 3,000 users, I just pay €1 per month, which is very small. But when you start to grow, you will have more fees, and it will be harder to migrate from Firebase to something else, which means that you have to really be careful and think if your project will be valuable with Firebase in terms of pricing, because if you have, for instance, a lot of files, then maybe it will cost a lot in storage. So you have to check the pricing and also think your code depending on the pricing. I could talk about this a lot of time, but we will finish. So there is a call start for functions, which means that when you call a function, it can take some time to start, like a few milliseconds or just 1 second, which can be a problem. You are bound to Google, which can also be a problem, because Google, we know that sometimes they just cut off and stop a project from the day to the other day, so it can be a problem. And the data sensibility, if there are some data you don't want to store in public places like Google's, because if it's for instance medical data, you don't have the right in at least in Europe, I don't know here, but in Europe you don't have the right to store data outside Europe servers, European servers, and you have to store them on servers that are that have the right to store medical data, which have a specific like registration and everything. So it was a long talk, so thank you very much for listening to me. You can thank you. So I hope you learned you learned some things. You can find me on Twitter at QLerebourg, and I will publish the slides, and you will find also in the slides the demonstration link, where you can just create an account, chat and everything, and the GitHub with the different branches containing the functionalities. So all this code is available online. Okay, so do you have any question maybe?
Just one kind of open question. Is there any companies that use Firebase, like big companies?
I don't really know about big companies using it. I know that I made different projects. So as I said, my company, Bear Studio, we are creating projects for other companies. We didn't work for a big company which is using Firebase. So I don't really know, but we use Firebase on different projects, and it's great to get started very quickly, and we have some great things. My personal side project, Travel Map, it's been created like more than 3 years ago, and the code base is growing, the user base is growing also, and as I said, it's very easy to make new things with Firebase, and it doesn't cost like nothing, €1 per month to have the database functions and everything. It's and it stores a lot of files since it's travel pictures uploading. So yeah, I don't really know for very big companies. I should. It's a good question. I should search from references.
Yes, and answer this question.
Okay.
They list the big companies on their website,
Okay.
and I can just read a few ones. So, for example, New York Times uses Firebase, NPR, Halfbrick, Duolingo use Firebase.
Okay. Okay. When you say this kind of thing, you still have to be careful, because New York Times can use Firebase, but maybe they are using it on a small project and not on the main website, because I don't think that the main New York Times website is made with it, but still it means that there are people having an interest in this technology, which is already like maybe 5 or 6 years old. And in the end, I didn't say it, but Firebase is just a wrapper that helps you being more easy to use, but it's just something which is using GCP, which is the Google Cloud platform, thank you, the Google Cloud platform, which means that even if they stop something with Firebase, you can still use it with Google Cloud platform.
Oh, so you're saying that if, for example, at some point I decide to migrate from Firebase, I still have to transfer all the files from Cloud platform?
You can get you can get your data from here, but you can if you want to migrate, for instance, you will probably want to migrate from Firebase to something which is like server hosted on premise. So you will take your data and have to write migration script that will migrate from the JSON to SQL, for instance, with PostgreSQL or things like that.
So I also wanted to ask, so as you said, Firebase supports on the JSON and relational databases, right? And it doesn't support SQL relation databases.
Yeah, it's not, you can delete data, obviously, but it's not SQL things. So yeah, you don't have the cascades from SQL, but in the other way, you can write functions that says that if data is deleted, then you will automatically trigger some things like deleting some other things.
So you can find a workaround?
Yeah, you can find workarounds.
I heard that Amazon Web Service, it's like a Google Cloud.
Yeah. True? Yeah, it's true because Amazon Web Services offers a lot of different services, and they created something which is AWS Amplify, which is the same kind of thing, because AWS is like GCP. They offer online services. Firebase is like something using GCP but making it easier. And there is AWS Amplify, which is doing kind of the same thing, because AWS is very hard to use. The developer experience is not great with it, but yes, you can still find the same kind of things. But honestly, I tried both, and Firebase, I find that it's a lot easier to use.
You prefer Firebase?
Yeah. Yeah, because I already hosted projects with AWS, and you have like at least 10 services to use just to host something online, so it's too much.
And also, I used a little bit MongoDB. I think for me it was kind of Firebase. Exactly,
because it's not structured database. It's like a JSON schema that you are storing and accessing. So yeah, it's kind of the same.
Did you use MongoDB?
I used it, but it was maybe 3 years ago, and I didn't do it a lot. But yes, I already used it, and it's the same. It's the same kind. It's not a really relational databases. It's like this. Any other question? Okay, so thank you very much, and yeah, I hope you learned some things.